What if vengeance came not with a knife, but with a needle? What if death arrived not in battle, but in the softness of cotton, the silence of a seam? In 1008, 153 Tennessee, a wealthy family began to die slowly, mysteriously, their perfectly sewn clothes hiding something far more sinister. But who was Louisa, the enslaved woman behind the needle, and why did no one see her coming? If you want to follow true stories that defy time and reveal hidden truths, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our investigations. The humid Tennessee air of midsummer 1008, 153 clings to thin cotton dresses hanging out to dry in the yard. In the distance, the white, pillared plantation house looms, its windows reflecting the midday sun with cold indifference. Inside, a family moves through familiar routines, the mistress with her quiet sip of tea, the master glancing from under his brimmed hat. Around them, shadows gather, shadows they cannot name, see, or escape. In the back building, rows of wooden benches hold enslaved women, hands busy with needle and thread, eyes lowered, backs bent under the weight of expectation. Among them is Louisa, slender and graceful in her posture. Her fingers move with mechanical precision, guiding fine stitches through linen and silk. Her face is expressionless, but her dark eyes reflect more than submission. They hold memory, sorrow, and resolve. Louisa's task is intimate. She hems the mistress's gowns, mends tears in the master's vest, embroiders christening gowns for newborns, repairs the children's jackets. Each garment passes through her hands, every stitch set with care. Family wears clothes bearing her labor, unaware of the silent calculus behind each thread. It begins quietly, a faint rash on the mistress's wrist, dismissed as heat or an insect bite. The children complain of chills, then lingering aches despite rest. The master grows irritable, his eyes clouded with dull confusion. The family doctor, a punctual man with handwritten notes, is called. He examines the symptoms, nausea, dizziness, skin inflammation, neurological tremors, and prescribes herbal tonics and rest in shaded rooms. He blames summer fever, humidity, or tainted spring water. No suspicion falls on Louisa. Her hands retreat, resuming their stitching. Her lips stay sealed. Around day 20, the first death comes. The youngest daughter lies pale and still in her bed, no tears announcing it, only hush. Then the matriarch, her hair falling in thin wisps, her skin blistered, her breath slowing. The doctor grows uneasy, shifting his hypothesis from fever to poison. He orders the clothes sealed away, draws fabric samples for examination, noting residues, strange oily spots between folds, subtle discoloration in linings, but chemical analysis is basic, inconclusive. No forensic labs exist, only intuition against rumor. The mistress, gasping in delirium, whispers of weightlessness, of fire beneath her skin. The master's appetite vanishes. His unsettled eyes scan servants with fear and curiosity. Louisa continues seated at her bench. To an outsider, her stillness seems normal, but rumors slither through the household. Linens that burn flesh, odors like bitter almonds, hushed warnings. Don't wear that satin blouse. The seamstress's quarters are overlooked. No chain ties her to suspicion. She exists between visibility and invisibility. Her work is her voice, her silence, her power. As the children lie in quiet coffins and the widow's mourning weighs heavy across the halls, whispers grow. Did the seamstress slip something into the thread? Could poison have been infused through hidden stitches or tuberous oils crushed beneath linings? No one saw her prepare anything strange, but every corpse wore her patchwork, her monograms, her lace. Rumors swell in hushed tones. The seamstress was taught by an elder woman, tales of herbal lore learned in whispered sermons of resistance, names of plants that kill when pressed to clothe, dosed subtly over time. No one outside the quarters confirms it. Louisa does not speak. She is described as quiet, obedient, efficient. Books do not hold her name, yet every frayed seam, every mend binds suspicion tighter. In the still heat, the household retreats into fear. Guests are turned away. Sleep comes fitfully, and Louisa stitches on. The house stands still, but not peaceful. The air grows heavy with unspoken fear and sickness. Servants move like ghosts, careful not to disturb the silence. The White family withdraws into their rooms. Halls, once ringing with forced laughter, now echo with footsteps and coughs. Behind closed doors, linen sheets soak in sweat, and strange lesions appear on those wearing Louisa's fine garments. Louisa's past is a patchwork of wounds and whispers. Born into bondage in North Carolina, sold south at 14 after a vague disciplinary incident. In her previous owner's ledger, there were unconfirmed rumors that a boy who hurt her died convulsing in the fields. In Tennessee, she was quiet, composed, her skill with cloth sparing her from fieldwork. She moved to the seamstress quarters under the mistress's supervision. Unknown to all, Louisa carried more than a needle. She formed a quiet bond with Bet, an older midwife with cataracts, who knew plants that made men bleed inside. Bet, whose children were sold off, taught Louisa the old ways, roots and saps that carried death in slow trickles. Under the guise of gathering herbs for dyes, Louisa learned to find subtle poisons, Jesuit seeds, dried belladonna berries, wild hemlock resin. Alone, they were dangerous. Combined in exact quantities and infused into fabric linings, they whispered death through the skin's pores. No one suspected the seamstress. Her role was too mundane, too feminine, too domestic to inspire fear. She stitched in silence, obeyed. But with each garment repaired, a decision was made. A thread here, a hidden fold there, a slightly heavier lining. She worked slowly. Time was her ally. Death didn't need to come suddenly. It was better if it didn't. By midsummer, a strange pattern emerged. Servants handling the family's clothing too often fell ill. A maid collapsed after wearing a hand-me-down shawl. A stable boy developed ulcers after carrying freshly laundered coats. The doctor suspected environmental toxins, mold, stagnant water, but nothing added up. Symptoms were erratic, some swift, others delayed. The White family dismissed his worries as superstition. In the enslaved quarters, whispers told a different story. They spoke of Louisa's hands as blessed or cursed. Some feared her, keeping their distance. Others left offerings, thread, beads, roots, at her room's threshold, not as gifts, but acknowledgments. They knew or guessed, but no one spoke openly. The family's decline grew undeniable. The youngest son, once robust, wasted away. The master hallucinated, screaming at shadows, accusing his children of betrayal. The mistress, bedridden, her eyes glazed, breathed raggedly. Rumors of witchcraft spread beyond the plantation. A traveling preacher found only sorrow and rot. Louisa remained calm, her fingers always busy. One night, the cook claimed she saw Louisa speaking to a shadow by the trees, perhaps Bet's ghost. When questioned, Louisa only lowered her eyes and resumed sewing. Her silence held. The plantation, once thriving, now reeked of decay. Louisa sewed on, each stitch a quiet act of defiance, each hemline a veil between vengeance and invisibility. By late August, the plantation house no longer echoed with piano music or parlor chatter. Only stifled breaths remained in a home suffocating in silence. The master, once a pillar of cruelty, wandered corridors in confusion, his skin yellowed, eyes sunken, flinching at his clothes' touch. He tore off a shirt mid-meal, collapsing in spasms before stunned guests from Alabama, who left immediately. His wife, bedridden, no longer recognized her surroundings, her skin oozing pus and blood. The new doctor suggested arsenic poisoning, but couldn't explain its manifestation through skin. He ordered all fabric removed from sleeping quarters and began fumigations. Nothing changed. The remaining children ached, their gums bled. The eldest son, once heir to the estate, refused to leave his bed, stammering of insects under his skin, clawing his neck until it bled. A nursemaid who tried to calm him was struck and fled that night. The staff moved warily, avoiding the family's gaze, communicating in glances. Some refused to handle garments. The laundry room grew deserted. Punished workers fell ill, their hands covered in unhealing lesions. Louisa remained untouched. No cough, no aches, her skin clear. She kept sewing, responding to orders with nods, delivering garments with precision, but her silence grew heavier. A housemaid, Sarah, confided that Louisa had once asked for a bitter, smelling root from the woods not used for dyes. Sarah wondered if it was part of this. The overseer's daughter collapsed, wearing a shawl Louisa repaired. The overseer stormed her quarters, finding only thread, needles, and fabric, nothing incriminating. Louisa stood silently, expression unreadable. The master, barely conscious, refused her confinement, muttering, "She's done nothing." A fire broke out in a shed, quickly contained, but fear spread. Some called the land cursed, others whispered of voodoo, a silent rebellion through thread and cloth. Louisa stitched on, her hands calm, eyes steady. No one dared stop her. The plantation became a place of absences. Windows stayed shuttered, footsteps faded. Dr. Albert Greaves, a Charleston physician, arrived, his reputation for treating feared illnesses preceding him. He felt an unease he couldn't name. Examining the afflicted, he noted discolored garment linings, stiff stitching, a faint bitter odor. He isolated the clothes, forbidding their use, and questioned the staff about Louisa. No one answered directly, but their silence spoke. Whispers turned to accusations. The overseer demanded Louisa face questioning. In the parlor, under an oil lamp's flicker, she stood surrounded by sickened eyes. "Did you poison the fabrics?" they asked. "None of it." She replied, looking past their fear. The master, too weak, forbade action without proof. Greaves's tests were inconclusive. He suspected a plant-derived toxin, but couldn't identify it. Fear outpaced certainty. The staff demanded punishment, whipping, execution, worse. The plantation was ruled by dread, not law. They called it a trial, but it was only the overseer, Greaves, and frightened souls. Louisa was locked in a storage room with cloth bales and rats. She stayed still, whispering names no one recognized. A storm hit, lightning striking a tree. In the chaos, her door was found open. No trail, no footprints, no sign of escape. The overseer launched a manhunt, but Louisa was gone, leaving only fabric scraps and an unfinished garment with the master's monogram, a needle in its hem. The family continued to weaken, falling silent one by one. Survivors never recovered. The plantation was abandoned by winter. Some said Louisa drowned in a creek, others that she escaped north, aided by those who knew her deeds. Among the enslaved, a different story lived, a woman who sowed death from memory, not hatred, vanishing into legend. Over a century later, the plantation lies in ruin, ivy choked, its roof collapsed, walls blackened. Tourists rarely venture there. The trees seem too close, branches like gnarled fingers, yet some come, historians, ghost hunters, drawn by an inexplicable pull. They seek Louisa, known as the seamstress or the silent one. Some call her a witch, others an avenger who turned submission into a weapon. The truth has unraveled. In 1962, Calvin Murdoch bought the land for timber. Under the sewing room floor, he found a trunk with fabric scraps labeled with the family's burial names, stained with oily smudges. One caused a worker's rash. Murdoch abandoned the project. In 1985, anthropology student Ainlise Turner visited, noting the ruins' eerie quiet. She found rusted needles in the floor and dreamed of a woman in shadows, eyes gleaming. She never returned. Local archives hold little. A doctor's journal ending in 1853, a death ledger with too many names, a trembling letter from the mistress. "She watches while we sleep. I know it now." Among nearby black communities, oral traditions speak of a spirit punishing cruelty slowly. They leave thread on windowsills, a custom with no known origin, only that forgetting is unwise. A preacher tried to exorcise the grounds, but fled after 3 days, saying, "Some wounds never close. Some hands never stop sewing. Some deny Louisa existed, a fiction of guilt and fear." Yet unexplained garments surface at estate sales, beautifully stitched, causing unease, numb fingers, illness. No science explains it. The plantation remains untouched, not from respect, but fear. Trees choke the paths, the foundation buckles. In the sewing room under dust, 5 letters are scratched into stone. Louis, a name, a warning, a confession no one knows. When the wind moves through, it sounds like thread slipping through fabric.